AITA, I, 17M, have been struggling with a situation involving my younger sister, 14F, and our extended family, and I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting. I've been hesitant to post about this because, well, family drama is messy, but I feel like I need some outside perspective. It all started about 3 months ago when my sister, Lily, started dating someone new at her school. She's always been pretty private, but this time she seemed extra secretive. At first, I didn't think much of it. She's allowed to have friends and interests, but things started to get weird. She wouldn't tell anyone anything about him except for vague hints. One day, my mom asked about it at the dinner table, and Lily just said, "It's none of your business." Normally, my mom would just drop it, but I couldn't help feeling annoyed because I felt like she was lying to protect him. A few weeks later, our extended family had a small get-together. This is where things started to get complicated. We have a cousin, Jake, who is around my age, and he's always been protective of Lily in a big brother kind of way, even though he's technically her cousin. During the gathering, Lily suddenly ran off outside to take a phone call. When she came back, she was visibly upset, and she refused to tell anyone what happened. Jake, being the curious person he is, followed her outside and eventually came back looking furious. He whispered something to my mom and then stormed off. The entire family noticed, and it created this awkward tension that lasted the rest of the evening. A few days later, my mom sat me down. She told me that Lily had been meeting with this guy in secret, and apparently, he had some pretty questionable intentions. She didn't want to go into details because she was worried I might overreact, but she said she trusted me enough to be careful around Lily and to keep an eye out. I didn't know what to make of it. I wanted to respect my sister's privacy, but I also didn't want her to get hurt. I tried talking to Lily about it, but she shut me down instantly, saying I was being nosy and controlling. Then last weekend, things escalated. Lily's school had an event, and I ended up running into her and this guy outside the venue. They were holding hands, and he seemed overly affectionate in a way that made me uncomfortable. He kept putting his arm around her shoulder, whispering in her ear, and she looked anxious rather than happy. I wanted to approach them to make sure she was okay, but I hesitated because I didn't want to look like I was bullying her boyfriend. The next day, I decided to talk to Jake since he had more experience dealing with Lily's protective instincts. Jake told me that he had overheard the guy pressuring Lily into doing things she didn't want to do, and he was really worried about her. At this point, I felt like I had no choice but to intervene. I tried talking to Lily calmly, explaining that I was concerned about her safety and that it was okay to set boundaries. She completely lost it and yelled at me, saying that I was trying to ruin her life and that I didn't trust her judgment. She even threatened to tell my parents that I was stalking her, which I know would have caused a huge fight. Feeling frustrated and helpless, I went to my mom. I tried to explain the situation without making it sound like I was attacking Lily, but she immediately sided with Lily, saying, "You're 17, you don't understand relationships yet. Let her make her own mistakes." I was shocked because I didn't think I was overstepping. I was genuinely worried about my sister's well-being. My mom then told me that if I continued to interfere, I'd be considered part of the problem. That stung because I felt like my concern was being dismissed. I haven't spoken much to Lily since then, and honestly, the tension at home has been unbearable. I try to act normal around her, but she either ignores me or makes snide comments. Jake, on the other hand, has been encouraging me to stay vigilant and offered to help me keep an eye on her from a distance. But I feel conflicted because I don't want to overstep or turn this into a bigger family issue. Here's the part where I think I might be the asshole. A few nights ago, I saw Lily texting the guy, and he seemed to be asking her to meet him somewhere late at night. I panicked and called Jake. We decided to go to the place she was supposed to meet him to make sure she was safe. When we got there, we saw them together, but she immediately recognized us and ran off. The guy started yelling at us to leave, and things got really tense. We didn't physically touch either of them, but it was obvious the situation could have escalated badly. Now my parents are upset because apparently I overreacted and invaded her privacy. Lily has been giving me the silent treatment, and Jake is frustrated because he feels like our family isn't taking this seriously. I keep thinking about the situation, and I honestly feel like I was just trying to protect my sister, but the more I talk to my parents and her, the more I feel like maybe I went too far. So Reddit, AITA for trying to intervene in my sister's relationship when she didn't want me involved, even though I genuinely felt she was in a potentially dangerous situation. I'm stuck between respecting her privacy and feeling responsible for making sure she's safe, and I honestly don't know where the line is. I should add that I'm trying to balance everything with school and my own life, so this whole situation has been extremely stressful. I feel guilty for involving Jake so much because it's making him feel responsible too, and I don't want our family to fall apart over this. But at the same time, I can't just sit back and watch something potentially bad happen. I know it might sound like I'm exaggerating, but I promise I'm not. The tension at home is real, and I just want some clarity on whether I truly overstepped or if my instincts to protect my sister were justified. I feel like I'm walking a tightrope, and I really don't know which side I should lean toward. Has anyone been in a similar situation where family, privacy, and safety collide? I just need an honest perspective without anyone telling me I should let her make her own mistakes, because I feel like this isn't just a mistake, it could be something worse, and I don't want to be the one who ignored it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to lend my friend money for her wedding after she accused me of not being supportive. I, 30F, have been friends with Emma, 29F, since college. We've always been close, and I've always been someone who helps my friends when they need it. Emma is sweet, but also extremely impulsive with money. She has a history of spending beyond her means and expecting others to bail her out when things go wrong. A few months ago, Emma got engaged. I was genuinely happy for her and immediately offered to help with planning in any way I could. She asked me to be part of her bridal party, and I said yes. That's when she started hinting that she might need financial support. She casually mentioned how expensive venues, dresses, and decorations are, and how stressful it is to plan a wedding on a budget. I nodded along, thinking it was just small talk. But a few days later, she asked me outright if I could lend her some money to cover part of the wedding expenses. I was shocked. I make a decent salary, but I have my own bills, student loans, and savings goals. I told her I couldn't lend her money, but I'd be happy to help in other ways, assisting with planning, helping DIY decorations, managing the guest list, or even finding cost-effective vendors. She reacted badly. She said that I was selfish and that real friends support each other in big moments. She implied that if I really cared about her, I'd help financially, even if it was just a small loan. I tried to explain that helping emotionally and with planning is just as valuable as lending money, and that it's not fair for her to put me in a position where I might jeopardize my own finances. She didn't accept that. She sent me long texts about how stressed she was and how she deserved to have a perfect wedding. She even mentioned that some of her mutual friends had helped their friend financially and implied that I was being miserly. Over the next few weeks, the tension grew. Emma kept bringing up the money in subtle ways, like posting on social media about how expensive weddings are and how friends should be there for each other. She also started micromanaging everything I offered to help with, insisting that I follow her exact instructions and criticizing any suggestions I made that were outside her vision. I tried to compromise, but every time I suggested a practical solution, she said I was ruining her dream wedding. A week before the wedding, she sent me a message saying that because I refused to lend her money, she might not be able to afford some of the things she wanted, and that it hurt her deeply that I wasn't supporting her fully. She said that if I really cared about her, I'd find a way to help financially, even if it meant adjusting my own budget. I told her firmly that I couldn't do that, and that she needed to respect my boundaries. She responded by accusing me of being cold, ungrateful, and even jealous of her happiness. The situation escalated further when she started involving our mutual friends. She sent the messages explaining that I wasn't helping financially and that I was being unsupportive during the most important time of her life. Some friends agreed with her, saying I should just lend the money to avoid drama. Others told me I was right to set boundaries, but the constant judgment started weighing on me. Emma then accused me of sabotaging her wedding because I refused to give her money. She said that I clearly didn't care about her or our friendship, and that she would remember this for the rest of her life. I tried to reassure her that I loved her and wanted to be part of her wedding, but only within the limits I could afford and without compromising my own finances. She said that wasn't enough and that my refusal was hurting everyone involved, including our families. A few days later, I decided to step back. I told her I would still participate in her wedding, help with planning, and celebrate with her, but I was not going to lend money. She responded by uninviting me from some pre-wedding events and started posting vague stories on social media about friends who only care when it's convenient. Several mutual friends reached out to me privately, some saying I was right, others suggesting I should just give in to keep peace. I feel conflicted. I genuinely want to support Emma and be part of her wedding, but I also can't compromise my financial security or allow myself to be guilt-tripped into spending money I don't have. I've offered help in many ways, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve money. I'm worried this may permanently damage our friendship, but I also know I made the responsible choice for myself. Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my friend money for her wedding after she accused me of not being supportive. I want to celebrate her and be there for her, but I also need to respect my own boundaries and finances. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So I, 25F, have always been close with my younger sister, Lily, 22F. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even though we have our differences, I have always been protective of her. Our parents divorced when we were young, and I often stepped into a second parent role because our dad was largely absent and mom worked multiple jobs. Lily has always been the type to follow her heart and make decisions impulsively, and I've tried to support her, but I also speak up when I feel something is off. About a year ago, Lily started dating this guy, Mark, 26M. At first, I was neutral. I didn't know him well, and she seemed genuinely happy. But very quickly, some red flags became obvious. Mark can be very charming, but also extremely controlling. He wants to know where she is at all times, text her constantly, and expect her to prioritize him over everyone, including her family. He also has a habit of talking over people in conversations, dismissing opinions he doesn't like, and making passive-aggressive jokes about people he thinks are inferior. I try to give him the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe he just comes off a bit arrogant, but over time, the behaviors became more blatant. I first spoke up about it when he started jokingly insulting my career path in front of us. I work in healthcare and have a demanding schedule. Mark said something along the lines of, "You're basically just a glorified babysitter for sick people. Must feel fulfilling to hold a clipboard all day." I laughed it off at first because I didn't want to make things awkward, but later I told Lily I didn't appreciate his comments. She brushed it off, saying he was just joking and that I was being too sensitive. The red flags kept piling up. He would make subtle digs at my appearance, my lifestyle, my choices, and even my family. Once, during a family dinner, he loudly criticized our parents for letting Lily and me grow up so spoiled while we were in college, even though our mom worked 2 jobs and our dad barely sent support. Lily again laughed it off and said I was overreacting. Fast forward a few months and they got engaged. I tried to be happy for her, but the planning process made things worse. Mark started dictating everything: the venue, the guest list, the food, and even the music. When Lily expressed an idea that he didn't like, he would sulk or give her guilt trips. One time, she mentioned wanting a small, intimate wedding with close family only. Mark practically yelled at her, saying it was embarrassing to have such a small event and that she should stop thinking like a broke college student. I began noticing that he also subtly manipulates people to do things for him. For example, he asked our mom to loan them money for a deposit and guilt her into giving them double what she originally offered, then complained to Lily that her family doesn't support us enough. He does similar things to Lily, her friends, and basically everyone involved. It's always framed as concern, but it feels like emotional manipulation. A month ago, I was helping Lily with some wedding prep and mentioned that I wanted to bring my best friend as my +1. Mark immediately said, "Do we really need more people? Everyone is already busy. Can't you just come alone?" You'll probably just make it awkward anyway. I found this extremely rude, but I didn't want to fight at the time. I told Lily privately that I was uncomfortable being around him and that his comments were crossing a line. She shrugged and said, "He's just nervous about the wedding. You're taking it too seriously." The last straw was a few weeks ago. During a family brunch, Mark started making jokes about my weight and my eating habits in front of everyone, calling me lazy and undisciplined because I ordered pancakes instead of salad. Our parents looked uncomfortable, but Lily laughed and said, "He's just teasing." I felt humiliated. I told Lily afterward that I couldn't be around him if he continued treating me this way. She said I was overreacting and that I needed to get along for her sake. 2 weeks ago, she officially asked me to be in the wedding party. I told her I would not attend unless Mark acknowledged his behavior and made an effort to treat me with basic respect. I also said that if she was unwilling to do this, I couldn't in good conscience support her wedding. Lily was furious. She accused me of being dramatic, trying to control her wedding, and being selfish. She said that I was choosing a few hurt feelings over family. Since then, our entire family has been divided. Some understand my point of view, like my mom and a few cousins who have witnessed Mark's behavior firsthand. Others think I'm overreacting and putting my sister in a tough spot. Lily has stopped speaking to me for the most part and has made posts on social media hinting that family drama is keeping her from enjoying her engagement. I feel terrible because I love my sister and I don't want to lose her, but I also can't pretend to be happy around someone who constantly belittles me. I don't want to make her wedding about my feelings, but I also feel like attending would send the message that his behavior is acceptable. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? Character count, 6,483 if you want. I can write another version with an even more dramatic, multi-layered family conflict that pushes closer to 7,000 characters. This one is long, but we can make it even more viral Reddit story style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to cover my sister's wedding costs, even though she threatened to cut me out of the family? I, 27F, have always been pretty close to my younger sister, Lily, 24F, growing up. We had the typical sibling fights, but for the most part, we got along well and leaned on each other through school and our family's drama. Our parents divorced when I was 15, and I ended up being a bit of a surrogate parent to Lily. I helped her with homework, drove her to soccer games, and basically did whatever I could to make life easier for her because mom and dad were constantly at each other's throats. Fast forward a few years, I moved out, went to college, and started my own career. I've been working in finance, and while I wouldn't call myself rich, I'm financially stable. Lily finished college, got a decent job, and started dating a guy named Ethan. They got engaged last year, and the wedding planning started immediately. This is where things started to go south between us. Lily has always had expensive tastes, but I didn't realize how bad it would get until the wedding planning began. She immediately asked me if I could cover the cost of the venue deposit because apparently it wasn't in their budget. I told her I wasn't comfortable fronting thousands of dollars for something I wasn't even part of planning and suggested she consider a smaller venue or a payment plan. She pouted but said she'd try other options. A few weeks later, she came back and told me the caterer she wanted was non-negotiable and would cost around $12,000. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I really wish you could help. You're the only one who can make this wedding perfect." I reminded her that I already helped her a lot growing up, and while I loved her, I couldn't just give away that much money. I suggested alternatives like a buffet or a smaller menu, but she refused to consider anything less than what she wanted. Then it got worse. She started hinting that if I didn't pay, she might not invite me or might reevaluate our relationship. I was shocked. I've never had anyone threaten to cut me out over money, especially my sister. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that weddings shouldn't be about who can write the biggest check, but she insisted that if I loved her, I'd contribute. Things escalated when she started texting me constantly, saying things like, "I guess money matters more to you than family," and "maybe you're not really my sister after all." I tried to calmly tell her that I loved her, but I couldn't afford to spend tens of thousands on her wedding. My partner, 29M, said I shouldn't feel guilty because it's unreasonable to expect someone to pay for a wedding unless they genuinely want to. The situation blew up a few days ago. She came to my apartment unannounced and started crying, saying she had no other choice and that she would have to go to our parents to see if they could make up the difference. I told her I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't ask our parents to either because I didn't want anyone else to be pressured like this. That's when she yelled at me and accused me of destroying her dream wedding and stormed out, saying I was dead to her. Since then, our family has been divided. Mom and Dad are upset with me, saying I should support my sister no matter what. Some of my cousins are on my side, saying Lily is being unreasonable, but I feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time someone mentions the wedding. I feel terrible because I want my sister to be happy, but at the same time, I can't just give her money I don't have or that I work hard for. I know weddings are expensive, but threatening to cut me out of her life if I don't pay feels manipulative. I've offered to help in ways that don't involve money, like helping with decorations, planning, or even hosting a small pre-wedding event, but she insists that nothing I do can make up for not paying. I'm stuck in this weird place where I want to be supportive, but also feel like I need to set boundaries. I'm worried about the long-term relationship with my sister. It's been years of building up trust and love, and now it feels like one decision about money is unraveling everything. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to cover my sister's wedding costs, even though she said she might cut me out of the family if I don't. Character count, 6,346 if you want. I can also write an even longer version that goes closer to 7,000 characters with more drama, dialogue, and family tension to fully mimic a viral Reddit post style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my apartment, even though she claims I'm being selfish. I, 29F, have a sister, Jenna, 27F, who is outgoing, fun, and generally easygoing, but she also has a history of being entitled and expecting people to drop everything for her. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment and have a steady job, a budget, and routines I like to keep. My sister knows all of this, but she often assumes that because I'm responsible and organized, I'll accommodate her requests without question. A few months ago, Jenna told me she and her fiancé, Kyle, 28M, were moving temporarily because they were renovating their new house. She casually mentioned they'd need somewhere to stay for a couple of weeks, and she expected it to be my apartment. I was caught off guard. While I could technically host them for a night or two in an emergency, I wasn't prepared to let them stay for weeks. I told Jenna that I wasn't comfortable having Kyle live with me, and that I could help them find a short-term Airbnb or a hotel nearby instead. Jenna immediately got defensive. She said it wasn't fair and that I was being selfish and implied that families should help each other in situations like this. She said, "I can't believe you wouldn't help us. I thought you cared about me and our family." I tried to stay calm, explaining that helping emotionally or giving advice is still support, but having someone live with me for weeks is a huge imposition, especially since Kyle is a stranger to me. The next day, Jenna sent a long text detailing all the reasons why I should let them stay, including that it would save them money, it's just temporary, and that it would show love and support as a sister. She said that other friends and family would find it reasonable, and that I was being rigid and cold. I reminded her that I could still help in other ways, like assisting with moving, coordinating deliveries, or even helping them find short-term housing, but she didn't accept any of these solutions. A week later, things escalated. Jenna started posting vague messages on social media about family who won't help and how hard it is to rely on people when you need them most. Some mutual friends reached out to me privately, asking if I was overreacting or if I should just give in. I explained my position, and most said I was justified, but the pressure kept building. Then Jenna started dropping by unannounced with Kyle, clearly expecting me to change my mind. I was firm and told them both that the answer was no. Jenna started crying and raising her voice, accusing me of ruining everything and of being ungrateful for the family support she had always received from me. She said, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me. You're putting your comfort over my happiness." Kyle stayed silent, but looked uncomfortable. I offered one final compromise. I would help them pack, coordinate deliveries, and even cover part of short-term rental if needed, but I wasn't going to let Kyle live in my apartment. Jenna refused and said my solutions aren't good enough and that I was choosing money and convenience over family. The argument lasted hours and ended with Jenna leaving in tears. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Jenna barely talks to me, and when she does, it's full of subtle guilt trips. She continues posting on social media about family who only cares when it's convenient, and some relatives are now subtly pressuring me to be more accommodating. A few mutual friends have expressed concern that this is damaging our relationship and suggest I should just let them stay to keep the peace. I feel torn. On one hand, I genuinely want to support my sister and her fiancé and help them during a stressful time. On the other hand, I have my own boundaries, routines, and responsibilities that I cannot compromise for weeks just because they're temporarily without a home. I've offered numerous alternative ways to help, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve giving up my personal space entirely. I also feel frustrated because this situation has become less about helping and more about emotional manipulation. Jenna frames my refusal as selfishness, even though I'm trying to balance helping her while respecting my own limits. I worry that giving in would set a precedent for future unreasonable requests. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my apartment, even though she claims I'm being selfish. I want to support them, but I also need to maintain my boundaries, protect my personal space, and keep my life stable. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house after he insulted my home renovation choices. I, 28F, live in a modest 2-story house that I bought and renovated myself. I'm not wealthy, but I put a lot of effort, time, and money into making it my own. I didn't hire anyone except for essential structural work, and I've been really proud of how it turned out, even if it's not magazine perfect. My brother, Jake, 31M, is the complete opposite. He's always been flashy and has a very particular taste that leans toward expensive luxury items. We've never had the closest relationship, mostly because he's always been very critical of my choices and has a habit of putting down anything I do that's different from his taste. A few months ago, Jake got engaged to his fiancée, Marissa, 29F. They recently started planning their wedding and, to my surprise, asked if they could host it at my house. They said it would be cozy and intimate, and honestly, I was flattered at first. I told them I'd consider it, but I was upfront that my space isn't huge and I wanted to know exactly what they had in mind. That's when things started going downhill. They came over one afternoon to inspect the space. Marissa immediately commented that my living room furniture looked cheap and that my wall color was kind of depressing. Jake added that the kitchen didn't have a modern vibe and that my backyard wasn't landscaped well enough for photos. I was stunned. I've hosted many gatherings before, and my home is perfectly functional and welcoming, but the level of criticism was just absurd. I tried to explain that my renovations were a labor of love and that I didn't have an unlimited budget. I told them they were free to decorate the space however they wanted for their wedding, but the tone was very condescending. Marissa rolled her eyes, saying, "We're just trying to help you make it look presentable." I realized then that this wasn't going to be a collaborative effort, but more like me bending to their taste entirely. After that visit, I started having second thoughts. I told them I would think about it and discuss logistics later. Over the next few weeks, I kept imagining the wedding in my home and kept remembering the comments. Every time I imagined them in my living room or taking photos in my backyard, all I could hear were the snide remarks about my taste. I began to feel that if I allowed it, it would turn into a situation where I was hosting a big event in my own home while feeling disrespected. Eventually, I called Jake and Marissa to decline. I told them that I didn't feel comfortable hosting a large event in my home, and I suggested they look into renting a hall or another venue that would accommodate their vision. Jake immediately blew up. He accused me of being selfish and said that I was turning this into a personal issue instead of supporting him on his special day. Marissa chimed in, saying I was overreacting and that they had only made suggestions, not demands. I tried to stay calm, but I pointed out that their suggestions were actually insults about my home and that I didn't want to spend one of the happiest days of my life being criticized in my own space. I reminded them that this was about their wedding, not about me, and I thought it would be healthier for all of us if they found a space they could decorate to their liking. Jake didn't take it well. He started messaging me multiple times a day, calling me dramatic, controlling, and not a good sister. My parents even got involved. They think I'm being too rigid and that hosting the wedding would be a nice gesture. My friends are split. Some say I have every right to say no, while others say I'm overreacting and should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. I haven't spoken to Jake since the initial argument, and Marissa keeps sending me texts about how disappointed she is. I'm trying to stay calm and not engage further because I know this could get worse if I argue more. I keep wondering if I'm really in the wrong here. On one hand, it's their wedding, and they clearly want me involved. On the other hand, I feel disrespected in my own home and don't want to host an event where I'll feel belittled every step of the way. I also feel like if I give in now, it will set a precedent for future interactions where I'm expected to accommodate their demands and tolerate criticism. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house after he insulted my home renovation choices. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by insisting on including my boyfriend in the bridal party. This all started about a year ago when my sister, Anna, got engaged. She's always been the more traditional, detail-oriented one in our family, and I'm definitely more laid-back and spontaneous. Our family has always been close, and Anna and I have been close too, though we've had our share of disagreements over the years. I was really excited when she got engaged and immediately offered to help with everything. Choosing dresses, planning the seating, handling decorations, basically anything she wanted me to do. I wanted to make sure she had a perfect day. About 6 months ago, I started dating someone new, Mark. He's amazing, funny, kind, and genuinely supportive, but he's not someone who's super into weddings or traditional roles. When I started talking to Anna about my relationship, she seemed fine with it, but she also made it clear that the bridal party was set in stone with her closest friends and family. That included her maid of honor, her best friend since childhood, her bridesmaids, a mix of cousins and friends, and her flower girl and ring bearer. My name was obviously on the list as a bridesmaid, which I was thrilled about. A few weeks ago, Anna called me into a meeting with her wedding planner. She told me the final lineup of the bridal party, and I was shocked to see that Mark wasn't included in any official capacity. I didn't think he would necessarily be in the bridal party, but I assumed he might at least be acknowledged, maybe as a guest who gets a mention or someone who could help out casually. But according to Anna, having him in the bridal party was not how she envisioned it, and she didn't want any new people shaking things up. I was frustrated, but I didn't push too hard at the time because I didn't want to start a fight. Then came the issue of the rehearsal dinner. Anna's fiancé, Greg, had suggested a small, private dinner with just the wedding party and immediate family. I knew that Mark wouldn't be invited, and that hurt because I had been spending a lot of time with him helping me pick out dresses, attend dress fittings, and even choose decorations. I mentioned to Anna that it might feel a little weird for me to attend without him, and I offered a compromise. What if Mark were just included in the rehearsal dinner in some small way? Maybe he could give a toast, or just sit with me at the table. Anna shot that idea down completely. She said the rehearsal dinner was not about outsiders and that I needed to respect her vision. I felt hurt and a little disrespected, but I didn't say much because I didn't want to escalate things. The final straw came last weekend at the bridal shower. I was helping set everything up and had invited Mark to help because he's really good at organizing and setting up decorations. Anna had not officially invited him, but I thought it would be okay since he was just helping behind the scenes. When Anna saw him, she completely flipped. She told me it was completely inappropriate for him to be there, that it ruined the surprise, and that it made things awkward for the guests. I tried explaining that he was only helping with setup, but she was furious. The argument got so heated that she asked me to leave the shower immediately. Mark was mortified, and honestly, so was I. After the incident, I tried calling Anna, apologizing if I had overstepped, but she didn't answer. Instead, she sent me a long text saying that I had crossed the line by assuming my boyfriend could be included, that I had made everything about myself, and that she didn't think I respected her wishes. I tried to explain that I was just trying to be helpful and supportive, but she hasn't replied since. My family is divided. My parents think I might have overreacted by expecting Mark to be included, but they also think Anna could have been more flexible. My cousins are mostly saying that Anna is being too rigid, but they also think I should have handled it more diplomatically. Mark thinks I did nothing wrong and that it was unfair of Anna to exclude him when he was genuinely trying to help. But he's worried about making things worse between me and my sister. I feel stuck. On one hand, I understand that this is Anna's wedding and that she has the right to make decisions about who is in her bridal party. On the other hand, I feel hurt that my partner, who has been supportive of me throughout this entire process, is being excluded and treated as if he doesn't exist. I've been trying really hard to balance being supportive of my sister and standing up for my relationship, but it seems like no matter what I do, I end up making things worse. So AITA for insisting that my boyfriend be included in some part of the wedding process, or at least for bringing him to help at the bridal shower setup. It's also worth noting that Anna's wedding is in about 2 months, and I'm worried that if things stay tense, I might not be able to attend without causing drama. I really want to be there for her, but I also don't want to feel like I'm erasing my relationship or pretending he doesn't exist. I consider just attending and staying quiet, but I know it's going to be incredibly awkward, especially for Mark, who wants to be supportive without causing any conflict. I've thought about compromising by having Mark attend only the reception, but Anna hasn't been open to that idea either. She says the wedding and everything leading up to it needs to be exactly how she imagined, and that I need to respect that. I do, but I also feel like I'm being forced to choose between my sister and my relationship, which seems unfair. I don't want to cause a permanent rift with my sister, but I also don't want to feel like my relationship is invisible. I've been told by friends that I should pick my battles, but this feels like one of the big ones. I'm terrified that if I just attend and act like nothing happened, resentment will build, and if I push back, I risk being completely cut out. I really don't know what the right move is. I want to support Anna and have a happy wedding, but I also don't want to feel like I have to erase a significant part of my life to make it happen. I'm wondering if maybe I handled the bridal shower situation wrong, or if I was justified in expecting my boyfriend to at least help out behind the scenes. I feel like the way she reacted was extreme, but I'm worried I might be in the wrong for pushing boundaries she explicitly set. I guess I just want to know, am I the asshole for wanting my boyfriend to be included, even in a small way, in my sister's wedding, and for bringing him to help with setup at the bridal shower? Or is she being unreasonable for completely shutting him out? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she says I'm being selfish. So, some background. I, 29F, have a house I bought about 2 years ago. It's small, but I love it, and I put a lot of work and money into making it exactly how I want it. I live with my dog, and the house is basically my safe space. I've always been close to my sister, Emily, 27F, but we've had our fair share of disagreements over the years. She's very social and outgoing, and I'm much more introverted. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago. Her fiancé, Matt, is great, and I was genuinely happy for them. However, when it came to planning the wedding, Emily immediately started hinting that she wanted to have it at my house. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept bringing it up, saying things like, "It would be so much more meaningful if it was at your place, and it would save us so much money." I told her politely that my house is really small and not designed for events. I've only got a modest backyard and a living space that barely fits my furniture comfortably. She argued that we could rent tents and tables and that it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I explained that my property isn't just space to me, it's my home. I spent a lot of money and time making it feel like my own sanctuary, and I'm not comfortable with strangers and a large crowd tramping through it. I also have a dog who doesn't handle strangers well. Emily got upset and said I was being selfish and that family should support each other. She also mentioned that Mom would be disappointed because it would be so nice to have it in the family home. I tried to stay calm and explain that I'm happy to help in other ways. I offered to help with decorations, planning, or even lending them money for a venue, but I couldn't host it myself. The situation escalated when she sent me a long message comparing me to our cousin who let their wedding be at her parents' house and said how everyone supported her. She kept insisting that my refusal was a personal attack on her and that it made me look cold and unsupportive. Things got worse last week. Emily and Matt came over for dinner, and she brought up the house again in front of our parents. She said, "We're really hurt that my name won't let us have it here. We thought family means something to her." My parents tried to mediate, saying maybe I could make a small compromise, but I really don't see one. I even offered to help them find a venue and assist with planning the budget, but Emily didn't want that. She wanted my house. The conversation turned into a full-blown argument, with her saying things like, "I can't believe you would put a material thing over family memories, and you're making this all about yourself, not me or Matt." I try to explain that it's not about material things. It's about my comfort, privacy, and mental health. I love my sister, and I want her to have an amazing wedding, but I simply cannot host it in my home. Now the tension between us is intense. She barely talks to me, my parents are frustrated, and family group chats are full of passive-aggressive messages. I feel like I'm being unfairly vilified for having boundaries, but at the same time, part of me wonders if I should compromise in some way. I even considered renting a small marquee in my backyard for just the ceremony, but my backyard is tiny, and I really don't want people in my house at all. I feel torn. I want my sister to be happy, but I also want to respect my own limits. I'm not the type of person who enjoys hosting big parties, and the thought of my house filled with dozens of guests makes me extremely anxious. Emily's friends have even started messaging me, trying to guilt me into saying yes, which just adds to the stress. So here I am, stuck between wanting to support my sister and needing to protect my personal space. I've been losing sleep over this, and the thought of attending her wedding at another venue now feels tense because of all the bad blood. I keep replaying the conversations, wondering if I really am being selfish or if I'm justified in saying no. AITA for refusing to let my sister have her wedding at my house, even though she says I'm being selfish? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house, even though my parents insist I should. So, this is a long one, and I'm genuinely torn, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of pressure that I don't think is fair. I, 28M, own a medium-sized house in the suburbs. It's nothing extravagant, but it's cozy, has a decent backyard, and is generally comfortable for a small group. I live alone, and I like my space. I've been careful over the years to keep my home in good condition and try to make it feel like my personal sanctuary. My younger brother, Jake, 25M, recently got engaged to his fiancée, Rachel, 24F. They've been dating for about 3 years, and this is a really exciting time for them. The issue started when Jake and Rachel approached me about potentially hosting their wedding at my house. When they first mentioned it, I thought maybe they meant a small gathering or a casual backyard reception. But as we started talking, it became clear that they wanted a full-on wedding. They were talking about 80 to 100 guests, a rented tent, catering, a DJ, decorations, and even a photo booth. At first, I tried to keep an open mind. I thought maybe there was a compromise, but the more they planned, the more I realized just how unrealistic it was. My backyard isn't that big. The lawn isn't level in spots, and honestly, my house is not designed to accommodate that many people. My kitchen isn't commercial grade, and while I could rent some things, the logistics and cost would end up being ridiculous. I mentioned this to them, suggesting maybe a small backyard party and renting a hall for the main ceremony and reception, but they didn't like that idea. They said it wouldn't feel personal enough, and that my home was perfect because it's where we grew up. I tried to explain that while it's meaningful to them, my house isn't set up for an event like that, and hosting 100 people would basically ruin my home for months. I even mentioned that the cleanup and potential damage to the yard and furniture is a big concern. They brushed it off, saying I'm just being overprotective and that it's their big day, so I should make sacrifices. Then my parents got involved. They called me and basically said I owe it to Jake to host the wedding, that it would be such a family memory, and that it's selfish to say no. They even hinted that if I refused, it could cause tension between me and Jake that might last forever. My parents are kind of known for guilt tripping, so I didn't take their side lightly. I tried explaining my perspective calmly, highlighting the logistical issues, my own financial constraints, and the fact that I need my home to remain livable. My mom told me that sometimes family comes first, and that I'm being unreasonable. I then suggested alternative solutions. We could rent a small hall, a local park, or even my parents' house. They have a bigger yard. Jake got visibly upset and told me he wanted it at my house because he wanted me to feel involved in the celebration, that my house has all the memories and that everyone loves it there. He said it would be like the wedding coming full circle because it's the place we grew up. I tried to explain again that it's not about not wanting to be part of the wedding. It's about practicality. I even offered to help with decorations, planning, and even lending my backyard for a small cocktail hour, but he still insisted on the full wedding there. At this point, I told him straight up, hosting 100 people in my house isn't going to happen. It's not about me being selfish. It's about reality. My house will be destroyed. The cost and effort are unreasonable, and it would be stressful for me in ways that could affect my daily life for months. My refusal led to an argument. Jake accused me of not caring about family, and Rachel said I was being dramatic over nothing. My parents called me later that evening and said I was making a mistake that could hurt our family bond. Since then, the tension has been palpable. My parents have made multiple comments in front of relatives suggesting that I'm the difficult sibling, and I've been getting texts from extended family asking why I'm being so uncooperative. I get it. Weddings are a big deal, and people want everyone on board, but I feel like I'm being forced into something that I genuinely cannot and do not want to do. I've tried compromise, tried explaining my concerns, offered alternative solutions, and even suggested that I would actively help with the wedding in ways that don't involve hosting, but everyone seems to think that saying no makes me the villain. So now I'm here, feeling completely stressed and guilty. I love my brother. I want him to have an amazing wedding, but I also don't want to sacrifice my home, my sanity, and my peace of mind for something that isn't feasible. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding at my house, even though it seems like everyone is saying I should. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his girlfriend stay at my house for an indefinite period after she called me cold and selfish. I, 31F, have a younger brother, Ryan, 28M, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Good grades, steady job, careful with money, while Ryan tended to make impulsive decisions and then expect others to bail him out. I love him, but he can be entitled and dramatic at times. About 2 months ago, Ryan called me late one night in a panic. He told me that his girlfriend, Allison, 27F, had an argument with her roommate and now had nowhere to stay. He casually asked if they could move into my apartment temporarily until they sorted things out. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, work full-time, and have routines and bills that I can't just set aside. I told them that I wasn't comfortable letting Allison stay, but I could help them find a short-term rental or a hotel nearby. Ryan immediately got defensive. He said it wasn't fair and that I was being selfish, insisting that families should support each other in tough situations. He kept saying, "I can't believe you wouldn't help us. I thought family meant everything to you." I stayed calm and explained that I wanted to help, but my apartment and personal space were not something I could just hand over for an indefinite period. Allison then called me directly. She was upset and said I was cold and unfeeling, and implied that my refusal would ruin her relationship with Ryan. She also said that other people would understand and that I was being unreasonable. I offered compromises. I could help them pack, drive their things to a short-term rental, or even contribute a small amount to a hotel, but she refused, insisting that staying with me was the only safe and convenient option. Over the next few days, Ryan and Allison started pressuring me constantly. I received long texts, passive-aggressive messages, and even some subtle guilt tripping on social media. They painted me as the villain, saying I was letting them down when they needed me most, and that I was choosing comfort over family. Mutual friends began reaching out, asking if I was overreacting or if I should just give in to avoid conflict. A week later, things escalated. Ryan and Allison showed up at my apartment unannounced, assuming I would change my mind. I told them firmly that the answer was no and that their behavior, showing up without notice and expecting me to bend to their demands, was unacceptable. Allison became furious, yelling, crying, and saying that I was destroying their lives and putting my comfort above family loyalty. Ryan stayed mostly silent, but looked guilty. I offered one last compromise. I would help them pack, organize deliveries, and contribute to a short-term rental, but I was not going to let them live in my home. Allison refused and called me cold-hearted, selfish, and untrustworthy. She accused me of trying to control their lives and undermining their relationship. Ryan said little, but his expressions made it clear he was frustrated with me. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Ryan barely talks to me, and Allison continues to post vague messages on social media about family who refuse to help and friends who aren't supportive. My parents have subtly pressured me to be more accommodating, and some mutual friends think I should just let them stay for a few weeks to maintain family peace. Others agree that I'm right to set boundaries. I feel torn. On one hand, I genuinely want to help my brother and support his relationship, but I cannot compromise my personal space, routines, and mental health. On the other hand, the constant guilt tripping makes me feel like I'm a bad sister, even though I've offered alternative ways to assist them. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where they could make unreasonable demands whenever it suits them. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his girlfriend stay at my house for an indefinite period after she called me cold and selfish. I want to support them, but I also need to protect my boundaries, my home, and my mental health. AITA for refusing to lie for my sister during her wedding planning. I, 28F, have always been close with my older sister, Emily, 32F, but lately things have gotten tense, and I need an outside perspective. I don't know if I'm a jerk here. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Daniel, 33M. On the surface, they seem like a great couple, and I genuinely like Daniel. But the closer we got to the wedding planning, the more I noticed that Emily's stress was turning into controlling behavior, particularly around her wedding day image. About 6 months ago, Emily started telling me that she wanted certain people to be at the wedding for appearances, even if they didn't get along with her. For example, her coworker Margaret, who she's had issues with for years but is also her manager, had to be invited to look professional. She also insisted that my cousin, whom she doesn't like, must not come, and that I need to make sure no one talks to him. I try to keep neutral and just go along, figuring it was her wedding and her rules. The real problem started when Emily asked me to lie on her behalf to other family members. She wants to have a small intimate ceremony of 50 people, but her guest list is easily over 150. She's told me to tell anyone who asks that she's only inviting a few close friends because the venue is very small and we're really trying to keep it low-key, even though the venue can fit almost 200 people comfortably. She's explicitly asked me to back her up if anyone questions why so-and-so wasn't invited, and to never mention that she's inviting people for networking or professional optics. I told her I wasn't comfortable lying to family members. I said that I'd rather redirect questions with vague answers like, "We're keeping it small," which isn't technically untrue, but I wouldn't actively make up reasons. Emily blew up. She called me selfish, said I was ruining her wedding, and accused me of not supporting her. She also said that because I refused to lie, other family members might pressure her into changing the guest list and making her day less perfect. Things escalated when her mom got involved. Emily's mom asked me to just go along with Emily's story to keep the peace. I explained again that I'm not comfortable lying and that I didn't want to create drama with other family members by giving them false reasons. My parents were upset too, saying that I was being stubborn and that it's just one little lie to keep the wedding smooth. I tried to compromise by telling Emily that I would support her decisions publicly without actively providing lies. I would say things like, "I'm sure Emily had her reasons," or "she's keeping it intimate," without adding false explanations. Emily accused me of being passive-aggressive and said that I was making her life harder. She also implied that I was betraying her by not being a team player. A week later, Emily asked me to RSVP on behalf of a mutual friend who hadn't decided yet. She wanted me to say that they couldn't come because of venue limitations, even though the friend could easily be accommodated. I refused. She got extremely angry and said that I was choosing everyone else over her, and that I clearly didn't care about her happiness. She then told Daniel, who called me later and said, "I understand your hesitation, but Emily is really stressed, and she's counting on everyone to cooperate. You should reconsider." I didn't reconsider. I told Daniel politely that I'm not comfortable lying and that I'll support Emily in other ways, but I cannot make false statements. This has caused tension between us. Emily has barely spoken to me since then, except for short, passive-aggressive messages. Her mom called me last night to tell me that Emily is really disappointed and that she feels like I'm deliberately trying to ruin her day. My parents also think I should just bite the bullet for the sake of family harmony. I genuinely don't want to cause a rift, but I also feel like being forced to lie isn't right. I want to support my sister without compromising my integrity, but everyone seems to think I'm overreacting. So Reddit. AITA for refusing to lie for my sister during her wedding planning? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay with me after she needed a break during the holidays? I, 27F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, especially my younger sister, Lily, 24F. Growing up, she was always the type to push boundaries, and I have a strong sense of personal space, so I think that has carried over into adulthood. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city with my boyfriend, Mark, 29M, and we've managed to create a life that works for us, quiet, organized, and predictable, which is exactly how I like it. This past week, things blew up. Lily has 2 kids, ages 5 and 8, and she's currently going through a tough time. Her husband is deployed overseas, and she's been struggling with balancing work, school, and parenting. I get it. I've tried to be supportive. I even offered to help with babysitting here and there when I could. But there's a limit to how much I can give, especially when my home life is just starting to feel like my own after years of living under my parents' roof. About a month ago, Lily called me asking if I could take the kids for the weekend so she could have a break. At first, I said I would think about it. The more I considered it, the more uncomfortable I felt. My apartment is not set up for 2 kids. I don't have kid-proofing, I don't have toys, and honestly, I cherish my quiet weekends. When I mentioned that, she insisted that it wouldn't be a big deal and that the kids are well-behaved. The day she was supposed to drop them off, she called crying. She said she couldn't handle another weekend alone with the kids on top of work and school stress, and she needed me to take them immediately. I told her I couldn't accommodate last-minute arrangements like that, especially without proper preparation. She got really upset and accused me of being selfish, saying I always make excuses and that I didn't care about her struggles. I tried to explain that I do care, but I also have to set boundaries, and I didn't feel equipped to take full responsibility for her children for an entire weekend. A few days later, she showed up at my apartment anyway with the kids, expecting me to just deal with it. I was furious. I told her firmly that this was not acceptable and that I could not host them. She started crying, saying that I was ruining her life and that I was the only family member she could rely on. I ended up calling her an Uber and paying for it to take her and the kids back home, which made her even more upset. After that incident, our entire family got involved. My parents and some extended family members said I was overreacting and that I should help my sister in her time of need. I argued that there's a difference between occasional help and letting someone treat your home like a free daycare. I also reminded them that I've helped her before when I could, but my apartment is not suited for kids, and I have a life of my own to maintain. Lily, meanwhile, has been sending me passive-aggressive texts, accusing me of being a bad sister and terrible aunt. She said things like, "I guess family only matters when it's convenient for you, and I would never abandon my niece and nephew like you did." My boyfriend has been supportive, saying I was right to set boundaries and that having the kids here unprepared would have caused chaos and stress for both of us. The tension escalated when my parents came over to mediate a week later. They asked me why I couldn't just compromise, even suggesting that I could put the kids in the living room with some movies and it wouldn't be that hard. I pointed out that my living room has very little space, the only sofa sleeps one person, and I have work and responsibilities that can't just be paused for childcare. They dismissed my points, saying I was being unreasonable and too picky about my apartment. I feel like my sister and even some of my family are expecting me to drop my entire life and accommodate 2 kids with no notice, just because she's stressed. I try to help in ways that are manageable, babysitting for a couple of hours, helping with homework when I visit, but overnight stays in my tiny apartment with no prep feel like a huge imposition. I'm worried that if I give in once, This will become a recurring expectation, and I will constantly be stressed and resentful. On the other hand, I do feel guilty. The kids are innocent in all of this, and I know my sister is struggling. She has no local support other than me, and part of me feels like I'm abandoning her. I don't want to be cruel, but I also don't want to compromise my own mental health and boundaries. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay in my apartment when she asks, especially last minute and without preparation. Character count, 6,384 if you want. I can write another one even longer, pushing closer to 7,000 characters, with more twists and family drama that would hit the popular Reddit story style perfectly. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my fiancé. I, 27F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 24F. Growing up, we were inseparable, but as we got older, our personalities diverged in ways I never fully expected. I'm organized, cautious, and tend to think a lot before I act, while Emily is impulsive, loves attention, and often prioritizes her own feelings over anyone else's. Despite our differences, we've managed to stay close, until recently. I got engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 28M, about a year ago. Mark is kind, patient, and respectful, and we've built a strong relationship together. Emily met Mark shortly after we got engaged, and at first, they seemed to get along fine. However, over time, I noticed subtle things that bothered me. She would make offhand comments about his appearance or career, sometimes in front of other people, or imply that he wasn't good enough for me. I brushed it off at first because I thought I was being overly sensitive, but the comments became more frequent and more hurtful. When Emily announced her engagement to her boyfriend, Jake, 26M, she immediately started planning her wedding. I offered to help, as I usually do, but things quickly went sideways. Emily insisted on making every decision herself, even after I tried to give gentle suggestions. I noticed she would take little jabs at me and Mark during these discussions, criticizing how we decorate our home, how we celebrate holidays, even Mark's taste in clothes. She framed it as joking, but it never felt funny. The breaking point happened about 2 months ago. Emily invited me and Mark to a pre-wedding weekend at a rented cabin with her closest friends and family. I was excited at first, thinking it would be a fun way to bond before the wedding, but it quickly turned stressful. Emily spent the weekend subtly criticizing Mark at every opportunity, telling him he was too quiet, implying he wasn't as outgoing as her friends, and even making comments about how he probably wouldn't fit in with her family traditions. One evening, after a heated game of charades where Emily mocked Mark's acting abilities, I finally confronted her privately. I told her that her behavior was hurtful and that Mark didn't deserve to be treated this way, especially by his future sister-in-law. Emily blew up. She told me I was being oversensitive and that Mark needed to toughen up if he wanted to be part of our family. She also accused me of always taking his side and claimed I had changed since getting engaged. The argument ended with her storming off, leaving me and Mark to pack our things and leave early. Since then, Emily has been cold toward both of us. She sent a message inviting us to her wedding, but included a passive-aggressive note saying she hoped we could get past everything and come with a positive attitude. Mark immediately said he didn't want to attend, and I agreed. I responded to Emily saying that we couldn't attend because we didn't feel comfortable around the way she treated Mark, and that her behavior had made it clear she didn't respect him. The fallout has been intense. Emily has called both of our parents multiple times, accusing us of being dramatic and selfish. She claims that we're ruining her special day and that we should just get over it. Our parents are divided. My mom understands our side and says it's reasonable to avoid a toxic situation, but my dad says we're overreacting and that family events require compromise. I've tried reaching out to Emily since, attempting to have a calm discussion, but she refuses to talk unless we apologize for not attending the wedding. I don't feel an apology is warranted because our decision is based on her consistent disrespect toward my fiancé. I love my sister and want her happiness, but I also have to stand up for myself and Mark. Now, several family members are expressing disappointment with me, and Emily has stopped talking to me entirely. I feel stuck. If I attend, I risk exposing Mark to more verbal attacks and resentment. But by not attending, I'm contributing to a major family conflict and potentially losing my sister for good. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my fiancé? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in temporarily, even though she says I'm being selfish and unsupportive? I, 32F, have a younger sister, Laura, 28F, who is energetic, social, and fun, but also has a history of expecting others to accommodate her plans without thinking about the consequences. I've always been the responsible sibling, steady job, careful with money, and organized, while she tends to be impulsive. Despite this, we've been close most of our lives. A few months ago, Laura called me in a panic. She told me she and her fiancé, Mark, 30M, were facing a situation with their apartment. Some unexpected renovations meant they couldn't stay there for a couple of weeks. She asked if Mark could stay at my apartment temporarily. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, and while I have a guest room, I wasn't comfortable having someone live with me for multiple weeks. I told her I couldn't have Mark stay long-term, but I could help them find a short-term Airbnb, assist with moving, or even drive their belongings back and forth. Laura immediately became upset. She said it wasn't fair, that I was being selfish, and implied that families should help each other in situations like this. She said things like, "I can't believe you wouldn't do this for me, and you're choosing comfort over family." I stayed calm and explained that I wanted to help, but having someone live in my home for weeks is a huge commitment, and Mark is practically a stranger to me. I suggested alternatives, including a hotel or short-term rental, but she dismissed them all. Over the next few days, Laura started sending guilt-tripping messages. She said things like, "I guess you'd rather have your peace than help your family, and Mark and I are in a really difficult spot, and you're the only one who can help us." She even started posting vague stories on social media about family who won't support you when it matters, and several mutual friends reached out, subtly hinting that I should just let them stay to avoid conflict. Then Laura and Mark came to my apartment unannounced. They clearly expected me to change my mind. I told them firmly that the answer was no, and explained that while I wanted to help, I had limits, and having someone live with me for weeks wasn't something I could accommodate. Laura started crying and yelling, accusing me of ruining everything and being selfish and unsupportive. Mark stayed mostly silent, but I could tell he was uncomfortable with the situation. I tried one last compromise. I said I would help them pack, drive things to a short-term rental, help cover some costs if needed, and assist with logistics. I made it clear I would not let anyone live in my apartment. Laura refused and said that my solutions weren't enough and that I was choosing convenience over family loyalty. She accused me of being cold-hearted, ungrateful, and even controlling. After this, our relationship became tense. Laura barely speaks to me, and whenever she does, it's full of guilt trips and subtle digs. She continues posting on social media about people who don't support family in their time of need. Some relatives and friends have sided with her, saying I should have been more accommodating, while others agree that I was justified in setting boundaries. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I genuinely want to support my sister and her fiancé during a stressful time. On the other hand, I cannot compromise my personal space, routine, and mental health. I've offered multiple ways to help that don't involve them moving in, but she refuses anything that doesn't give her exactly what she wants. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where she and Mark could make unreasonable demands whenever it suits them. Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in temporarily. Even though she says I'm being selfish and unsupportive, I want to help and support them, but I also need to protect my boundaries, my home, and my mental health. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house after he embarrassed me in front of my friends. I, 25F, live in a small apartment with my roommate, and I usually host small get-togethers because I like having people over. I have a close group of friends from college, and we've been doing a weekly game night for years. It's kind of a tradition, and everyone knows each other really well. My sister, Emma, 28F, recently started dating someone new, Jake, 30M, and she's been talking about him nonstop for a few months. She's the type to gush a lot, and I normally don't mind, but she kept pressuring me to meet him and let him be part of the family. I finally agreed to have her bring him to game night a few weeks ago. I thought it would be fine as long as he respected the rules and my space. The night started okay. Everyone was playing board games, chatting, and drinking a little. Jake seemed quiet first, which I thought was fine, but then things started going downhill. At some point, Jake started making really condescending jokes about my apartment and how small and cluttered it was. I tried to laugh it off at first, thinking maybe he was just joking, but the jokes kept coming. Then he made a comment about my friends, saying, "I can't believe you guys actually enjoy this stuff. It's kind of pathetic." That was the moment I felt really disrespected, not just as the host, but also because he was attacking my friends. I told him calmly that he could either be polite or leave, and he shrugged it off. The worst part came during a drinking game. Jake decided it would be funny to call me out on my weird habits, like the way I organize my snacks and how I line up my game pieces. He exaggerated everything for laughs, but it was humiliating. My friends were laughing nervously, and I could tell some of them were uncomfortable. I eventually walked out to the kitchen, and Jake followed, still making jokes. I told him firmly to leave. Emma was visibly upset, but didn't force him out. After he left, my friends tried to reassure me, saying that I handled it well and that I shouldn't feel bad, but I felt embarrassed and angry. I texted Emma later that night, saying that I couldn't have Jake over again because of the way he treated me and my friends. She blew up on me, calling me overreacting and ruining her relationship. She said it was just harmless teasing and that I was too sensitive. A few days later, Emma asked if Jake could come over to drop something off, and I told her no. She got really upset and started accusing me of being selfish and controlling. She even said that I was punishing her for dating someone she likes. Our parents got involved because Emma complained to them, and they said I should try to be more accommodating and that maybe I was overreacting. I feel conflicted because I do want to support my sister, but I also feel like it's not fair for someone to be allowed in my home if they treat me and my friends poorly. I've offered to meet Jake elsewhere, like at a cafe or a restaurant, but Emma keeps insisting that he should be allowed in my apartment. Some friends have told me I was right to stand my ground, while others are saying I might be too rigid and that I could try to let it slide for my sister's sake. Emma hasn't spoken to me much since the incident, and family gatherings have become tense because she brings up Jake and how I supposedly hate him. I feel like this is about basic respect and boundaries. I would never treat someone else like Jake treated me, and I can't see why I should allow that in my own space. At the same time, I don't want to completely ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also know that if I give in, it might just encourage more disrespectful behavior in the future. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend come over after he embarrassed me in front of my friends? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after they trashed it last time? So, this is going to be a long one, and I'll try to give all the details to make it clear. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lily, 24F, who has 2 kids, Max, 6M, and Emma, 4F. Our parents live in another state, so she mostly depends on me if she needs babysitting. I don't have kids, and honestly, I love having my space in a clean, organized home. I work from home, so the last thing I need is chaos during my work hours. A couple of months ago, Lily asked if she could leave her kids at my place for a few hours while she went to run errands. I agreed because I thought it would be temporary and manageable. Big mistake. The kids ended up completely trashing my apartment. They drew on the walls with markers, spilled juice on my couch, knocked over and broke a lamp, and left toys everywhere. I spent the rest of the evening cleaning and was exhausted. I told Lily that she needed to supervise them better or I wouldn't be able to watch them again. She apologized, but didn't seem to take it seriously. Fast forward to last weekend, Lily asked if she could leave Max and Emma at my house again while she attended a friend's wedding out of town. I immediately said no. She got upset and said I was being unreasonable, claiming I was overreacting and that kids will be kids. I reminded her of what happened last time and that my home isn't set up for unsupervised kids. She argued that she's a busy mom and I should help family when needed, and that it's not fair to refuse. I explained that I work from home and having her kids unsupervised would interrupt my work schedule. I also mentioned that the last time she left them here, I had to spend hours cleaning and fixing the damage they caused. She accused me of being selfish and said that family should support each other, implying that I'm being difficult just to inconvenience her. I offered to help her find a babysitter or even watch them if I was present, but she seemed offended by the suggestion and said I was making it all about me. Our parents got involved after Lily called them to complain. They said I should help her out because she's struggling with childcare and that I'm technically an aunt, so I should be willing to step up. I explained that my home, schedule, and mental health are all factors, and that I'm happy to spend time with the kids under controlled circumstances, but not to the point where it becomes damaging to me. They told me I was being stubborn and that family members help each other no matter what. I ended up hanging up because the conversation got heated. Since then, Lily hasn't spoken to me much. She keeps posting on social media about how she can't rely on family and how hard it is to be a single parent, which makes me feel guilty. At the same time, I feel like I'm justified because last time she left her kids here, I literally spent all day cleaning and fixing things she should have been responsible for. She hasn't offered to pay for the damages or even acknowledge how stressful it was for me. A part of me feels guilty because I know she's under a lot of pressure and maybe I could have tried harder to help. But another part of me thinks that my home and my boundaries should be respected. I'm not against helping family in general, but I feel like she's asking too much and not taking responsibility for her kids' behavior. My friends are split. Some say I'm right to protect my home and time, while others think I should just deal with it because family obligations come first. I'm starting to wonder if I really am being selfish or if I'm just setting reasonable boundaries. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister leave her kids at my house after what happened last time. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.